Welcome back to Preparing for the Unexpected. Today we are talking with Regina Phelps about 2024. Regina, great first segment, lots that we touched on there. Now, what's our next topic?
Well, everybody knows that I am a pandemic person as well, and so I have to talk about the H5N1 outbreaks that are occurring in the United States, just because I don't want to raise your blood pressure, but I need you to be paying attention in case this thing does go south. So H5N1 is a bird flu influenza virus. It's been around actually since 1997. That's actually what got me interested in pandemic planning in 1997. It has come and gone. It's actually been decimating the wild bird populations around the world tremendously, but also sea mammals as well, seals in particular. But the last, oh gosh, 3 or 4 months, we have had an increasing crisis here in the United States. Initially started with chicken and turkey farms. And so that became a big problem. Eggs got very expensive. Chickens became much more expensive, blah, blah, blah. But then what happened was really fascinating. And this was this summer when all of a sudden cows started getting sick and they actually did screening. This is dairy cows. And they did screening for influenza. And oh my gosh, they discovered that there is a receptor in mammary glands of bovines that no one knew about that could actually be receptive to the flu. So now we have in the United States, I want to make sure I get my numbers right. There are 16 states that do major dairy production, and 16 states have bird flu in cows. There's 865 herds in the United States that have them. Some have thousands of cows. So we're not talking about a small group. And we're talking about massive infections in many of these herds. Some states we're doing very limited testing. California's been very aggressive about that. We have the largest dairy herd in the United States. But it's been also infecting people. So there's around 60 people in the United States that are primarily dairy workers who have been infected. There are some people who have been infected with chicken and turkey farming. But now we have, and most of those have been mild, and it's either been causing conjunctivitis, which of course is the inflammation of your eye right here. And that's because there's a receptor for influenza in your eye, believe it or not. And so it would cause that. But now we have our first serious case of somebody on a ventilator in Louisiana who's 65 and has bird flu. None of these cases have been transmitted by humans to each other. But the thing that I think is unnerving, and all of us need to think about it, and I know no one wants a pandemic. I certainly don't right now. But there is a lot of transmission going on between cows to each other, birds to each other, and occasionally infecting a human. And there's been recent studies about why this is, I mean, we all know this is a big deal, but there was a recent study that's been well researched and documented by now several different scientists, that there's only one receptor that needs to flip to actually make it become a human-to-human transmitted disease. And so it's like the roll of the dice. This could happen tomorrow. I mean, it could have already happened. And so I think, and that's not to scare people or make them crazy, because none of us want a pandemic now that we all really know what they're like. But it's an urgent issue. Here in the United States, there's a couple things that are new going on this week. The governor of California has declared a state of emergency in the state, which means they have a lot of power now to actually do things in farms, even if they don't want them to come in and do research, which is good. And then secondarily, the USDA has ordered bulk testing of dairy milk throughout the United States. And what happens is they're not testing individual cows, but what happens in dairies is they milk a bunch of cows, they ship it out. It's actually, they know all the cows that were in that shipment. And what they're doing is they're doing bulk testing of all of that, essentially, 10,000 gallons of milk. And then that way, if it comes positive, then they know exactly which cows produce that milk, and then they can go back and backtrack them. So that actually just went is going to in effect this week, actually, which will be good. I mean, because I don't know about you, but I'm not ready to do another pandemic.
No, one one was one too many,
Yeah, right.
in my
Well, yeah, because I
lifetime.
mean we're still struggling with that. The other thing is that I'm looking at my notes here because I want to make sure I get it right. There are actually now this new federal law that the USDA put out. So they're doing bulk testing. They're now doing tracing, and it's mandated. So before this, there was no requirement that made the dairy farmer have to do something. So now the USDA said you will do this. And then lastly, they require that if there's any positive tests, they must bring in state veterinarians and private veterinarians in order to manage the situation. So up to this point, if somebody had a positive set of cows, there was no requirements that they had to actually do anything. So now this has been more aggressive. So I think that's a good sign.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, we just have to keep our fingers crossed. I know we have to do more than that, but I mean, I think we need to really pay attention about this in particular. I know we could pull out our pandemic plans pretty quickly because we just rewrote them not that long ago.
Well, even if
But
people
it's
didn't rewrite them, they at least have it fresh in their mind what they did,
minds.
you know.
So what I would just say is that it's important that people pay attention because this is, and what's unnerving, of course, is Trump's taking office, and he was not a very positive person in the sense of the pandemic. He did a lot to keep it under wraps for some time before it actually became public, and that's disconcerting. And there's no Fauci there anymore. And if RFK Jr. becomes our next head of HHS, which is Health and Human Services, who doesn't believe in vaccines, that's kind of a problem.
Yeah, the
America.
reemergence of polio again,
Yes.
because that did happen.
Yes, that
You
has
know,
happened.
that has happened, and if those vaccines go away again, well, then guess where we're heading? You know,
Right. Same for measles, for mumps, for Bella, all of those things are
you know,
it's unnerving. And
we go
people, I
back to
think,
the 18th century.
yeah, and I think the thing that people don't realize is because you haven't seen any of those illnesses probably ever in your lifetime, that they're horrible and kids die from, for example, measles, mumps, or rubella.
Yeah.
Um, People become paralyzed with polio. I mean, yeah, those are serious illnesses. And so, yeah, I'm a little concerned the fact that we've got Trump coming in and his current picks for a lot of his health roles are just disconcerting from keeping us safe, which is a little unnerving.
Well,
Which
the
sort
other,
of thing, I'm sorry, go ahead.
so I was going to say the other thing that concerns me is a little bit too is some of the negativity around vaccines post-pandemic.
Yep,
Whether it be true or not, I'm not going to pick a side here, but how some people have not been taking their vaccines and now are getting sick
yep,
through flu season, because we're in flu season now, and people are getting really sick, and it's causing others to be sick. We talked about
right.
it during the break. What did you call it? Walking pneumonia, was it?
Yep, walking pneumonia
Walking pneumonia,
is a
where I
real
know,
thing. It's a real
yeah,
thing, walking
and I know
pneumonia.
quite a few people who have had it. My niece has had it. She's getting over it. My mom had a mild case. She's getting over it. Neighbors were really sick with it, and it's happening everywhere.
Yes, it's all over the United States. And again, it's another one of those illnesses that is common, but kind of went under hiding during the first couple of years of the pandemic, and now it's out there in mass because so few people have been exposed to it in a long time.
Yep.
And so the holidays, I think, there's going to be a lot of illness in the holidays.
Yeah, I think so. Because a lot of people now, I know a few that, oh, I'm not bothering with, uh, getting my shot, flu shot or whatever anymore. And
Right,
it's, what, why?
right,
Stuck,
right.
I think like we mentioned earlier on, I think you've got yourself stuck down a rabbit hole somewhere.
Yep,
Like
right,
were you ever sick before? No.
yeah,
Yeah, because you were taking your vaccines. Now you're not
right.
taking your vaccines and you're sick and you're blaming it, on the vaccine. That
And
makes,
you're infecting, yeah, right.
yeah,
And then you're infecting other people. That's the other thing
yeah,
too, right? If you want to be sick and miserable all by yourself, great, but you're going to be out in the world likely. to
Right.
some extent while you're infectious, and you're going to be infecting people that are pregnant or kids or, older people that don't have the abilities to fight it off as easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, that stuff all makes me, as you know, my nursey part comes out, makes me
Yeah.
great.
Nursing part. I like that.
We know, there's a couple of other things I want to mention under this big title of uncertainty, at least here in the United States, and perhaps some of these things are going to be relevant for other people outside the US. Here in the United States, there was a recent murder of the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, in New York about 2 weeks ago. The guy was shot in cold blood, died, 50 years old. He's the CEO of the largest healthcare insurance company in the United States. There's a lot of unhappiness about healthcare in the United States for many different reasons. But what's been unnerving, frankly, Alex, is the response online to this guy's murder, of which in social media sites in particular, there have been people applauding that this guy was killed in cold blood because of the policies of United Healthcare and many health insurance agencies under the big umbrella of, essentially deny access to care and then dispute any kind of issues that people might have and dissolve. I mean, essentially meaning to kick them out of a health plan. And so I find it deeply unnerving, though. I mean, I have lots of issues with our healthcare system. I think it's really messed up. But the fact that people would applaud somebody being murdered is a little
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. I think that's taking things too far, obviously. The other
Right.
part about that I really didn't like is people on different social media sites. Oh, the killer, he's cute. It's like, what? He's a murderer.
Right. Right.
What does his looks have to do with it? He's a murderer,
Right.
and you're applauding the fact that he's cute, as well as, oh, I'm glad he killed that person. Like, what's
Right.
going through your head?
Right.
You know?
Isn't that unnerving? I mean, that's kind of like losing your humanity, right? When you
Yeah.
start to depersonalize somebody or dehumanize someone, uh, that's kind of what the Nazis did, right? I
Yeah.
mean, essentially. And I find that deeply disturbing. And I don't know. I mean, I find that maybe that's just the part of our times where we're doing that, but I find it deeply disturbing.
Yeah.
And I think the last thing I want to just mention in relationship to 2024 is the rise of the oligarch. Here in the United States, we have people with a lot of money. I'll just point to Elon Musk as one example of that, a billionaire plus. In fact, I just saw today in The Economist that he could actually turn out to be a trillionaire, our first trillionaire. And I thought, oh my God, what's wrong with that picture?
Yeah.
Um, the power of this reminds me of the Gilded Age, which was in the late 1870s through almost the 1900 in the United States, where there were many names like Carnegie and others that were very wealthy, very famous, and basically did whatever they wanted and kind of ruled the world. And increasingly, it feels that way here in the United States. I don't know about Canada, but it's absolutely horrifying, the amount of money and influence. And here in the United States, of course, Elon Musk is now termed as the best buddy to President Trump because he's sort of, doing all kinds of things. In fact, when an event occurs, he's now publicly talking about it as if he was the commander in chief. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
mind-boggling to me.
correct me if I'm wrong. After his a post about shutting down the government or
Mhm.
kiboshing a funding bill for the U.S. government this Saturday I think is the shutdown,
Right.
December, what is that, 21st,
Yep.
would be shut down. And there's a headline, I saw it earlier on, that said, you can blame it on the billionaire. It's
Right.
him.
Right. Right. I mean, isn't that unnerving that one person, simply because they're uber wealthy, can literally drive policy in that manner? I mean, and basically just working around the government. And because he has the ear of Trump, he seems to be able to do whatever he wants. And I find that
Yeah.
deeply disturbing.
Yeah. And the cabinet are all billionaires, people that
Right.
are being appointed, or at least multimillionaires.
Right.
You know,
Nobody's just an average person.
yeah, but yet democracy is supposed to be, government for the people, by the people.
Right.
Right.
And that's yeah, and that doesn't quite meet that category, does it?
No, it doesn't. Far from it.
Far from it. So when you look at all of this that's going on, and I think when you look going forward, I mean, there's a lot of things that are there. I would just say to me, what I think about 2025 is this interplay of uncertainty and technology and what's going to happen with Trump in particular, all the things he said he's going to do. So are we going to have mass deportation? Are we going to destabilize? That'll destabilize so many communities. So, and that could be a business issue. I mean, if you're, not for an office environment, very likely, but if you're, in farming, if you're in agriculture, if you're in the food industry, if you're in so many things, very likely there are undocumented people that are doing a lot of that work. Who's going to do that if those people are actually all thrown out? And
That
so
is
I think,
something, that's something here. A lot of the people that pick the crops and are out in the fields and doing different things out on these huge farms
yep,
are immigrant workers or
right.
seasonal even immigrant
Yep.
workers. They come up for the summer and then they
And they
leave.
go back, right?
But if you're not allowing them in to do that, the people that are here, there's not enough to do that work. So who's doing it? Which means
And people
crops have
don't want to
got,
do it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they don't want to do that work, which means crops will go unpicked or whatever you
Right.
call it,
Fields go
cultivated.
fallow, right?
Yeah, and that'll make its way to the grocery store, truckers as well. Farmers will suffer, farms will shut down, so now there's even less food being cultivated,
Right.
less truckers, less food in the grocery stores, higher prices.
Yep.
So it just filters through.
Right. Right. And I think we're in this sort of, I'm, at least for me, I'm one of those people that's like, well, okay, you said you're going to do all these things. Oh my God, if you do, the mass deportation, but then in our field, and this would affect Canada too, the United States, one of the things in Project 2025 is to immediately really take FEMA and lower it in its importance and stick it under the Department of Interior instead of Homeland Security. They want to do things like NOAA, which is the weather service for the United States, and storm monitoring. They want to basically privatize that. So it would be private entities that would be doing it, not government entities. There's a whole long list of things in Project 2025 that they wish to do under cost cutting. I mean, you still pay for those things, but it would be a private service and not the government. And so there's a whole lot of angst about what this could do and how it could impact, frankly, people in my business and our business in the United States responding to crises and disasters if many of the things that we commonly use every day are no longer there, or
Yeah,
they have been basically subjugated below some other group and defunded, essentially.
yeah. Well, they're already doing that because I read somewhere that some of the states don't want to pass funding bills to help those that were impacted by that huge tornado that went by.
Right.
I forgot the
Or
name
the
of it.
hurricane. The hurricane.
Yeah, the hurricane. What's the name? I forgot the name of it.
That was Helene.
Helene, yes. And that people are still waiting for their states to get approval for funding so that they can rebuild and move forward. And states are saying, well, no, we have to wait and see. And, we got to cut funding, watch our spending. It's like, so you really don't care about your people.
Right. Ultimately.
That's what it comes down to. And
Right.
when that happens, that starts to create resentment. And then you get civil disobedience. And then you get riots. And then you get, other things that are occurring that start impacting. And if you have a business that may be perceived as doing well, you're going to be seeing why are they getting treatment and we're not.
Right.
And then your business, who you thought you had nothing to do with this situation at all, you're just blessed that you still have your facility, it wasn't destroyed. Suddenly, why you're perceived as something different, and now there's going to be a backlash against you, and you've actually done nothing.
Right. Right.
It really does compound and build up over time.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there's just so, yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think, I mean, what a depressing conversation we're having here today. This reminds me of our pandemic life. But I do want to say, because I know we're running long here. I think there's some really radical uncertainty that we all need to really think about. And we've talked about a lot of those things today. But I also think in tying back to our profession and now I'm starting to see job losses in our industry. As money's getting tight, uh, departments are shrinking, people are getting laid off. And so I think people need to really, and I've talked about this many times before, but I think one of the most important things that we should be doing as a profession is focusing on the value that we provide a company every single day. And if all you're ever talking about is how important it is when the bad thing happens, I'll be able to help you or save you or whatever, that is the wrong damn thing to talk about. I mean, you need to be talking about the value of what you provide and it could be things like you're helping creating a competitive advantage because your company is highly resilient and will always be there in the times of trouble. It could be things such as you're meeting all the regulatory compliance issues and you're helping your customers meet their regulatory compliance issues. It can be things like the fact that your brand and reputation is so important. That we're going to help you keep that in the work that we do. And because it's so easy to have a tarnished reputation and then your customers abandon you. You could talk about the fact that how important it is that we do risk identification and we prevent things from getting worse. And maybe the reason things never seem like they happen is because we have prevented them, but we never talk about those things. And there's a
Right.
long list of things I've talked about with you before. But I just want to circle back and say, this is the time in our industry where there is such uncertainty, such instability in the world. There's so much that we need to be able to do for our clients or our employers. But if we don't sell ourselves adequately, we won't have that opportunity because there's things like AI that is blinking in the future here. When I can see a CEO saying like, well, can't we just do all those business continuity plans on artificial intelligence? Can we do that? Oh, I'm sure you probably could. So, I mean, I think we need to really think about the value we provide every day and the answers to things like, well, couldn't we do all of this with AI? Why wouldn't that be satisfactory? Those are the kind of things I think people need to think about now.
Yep. We have an opportunity in 2025 to really, with all this uncertainty, really pull people together to work
Absolutely.
and address the uncertainty. If we don't pull people together, then that uncertainty will grow in our communities, our organizations, and in ourselves.
Yep.
And it'll fester and it'll grow.
Yep.
But we have an opportunity in 2025 to take that uncertainty. Let's address it. Let's face it. Let's pull people together and work together. More. We have an opportunity. Let's just say,
Absolutely. And in our profession, we're unusual in the sense that we know more about an organization than almost anybody in the organization because of the kind of work that we do. And so we have the ability to be forward thinking. We have the ability to make a difference, but it's all really about how we promote and sell our product based on the value that we provide every day. And I have begged our colleagues for, I don't know, 20 years I've been talking about this. But I'm going to do it again because now I think it's really important. I just think it's really, 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 really important. And so maybe you and I will talk about value issues and other things like that in the new year.
Yeah, who knows what'll happen by then.
Right. Totally.
I think on that laugh, that should be where we end today.
Good
After all,
idea.
after all, some of
Right.
these other things we've touched on.
Yeah, right.
Let's
Right.
end with a laugh.
I think it's good.
Regina, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure always chatting with you, of course.
You're welcome, Alex. It's a delight to spend time with you. So have a happy holiday, a great new year, and we'll talk in January, I'm betting.
Yes, and all the best to you and yours over the holidays, and all the best for 2025 as well.
Thank you.
And everyone watching and listening, you have a good 2025, and we will see you soon. Stay prepared, everybody. If you like that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.